on with the program now. Cheryl Railsback and Diane Bernhard are going to be talking to us about the strategic plan for the future. So, all right, here we go. Kim's excited. I want y'all to get excited.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to test this. Everybody can hear me? Yeah? That's good. That's a sign. Thank you. First of all, shout out to our folks in the back here from Avad. They're amazing. It's always, our trainings are always better when you all are here. So thank you for that. And managing an in-person and online training at the same time is not something easy to do. I'm sure some of you have tried to host in-person and virtual meetings at the same time. It's a challenge, especially with sound. So thank you all for what you do here. We appreciate you. So we are so excited to talk to you about the strategic plan. I know some people go, strategic planning, oh my gosh, it's going to be like 45 minutes of sitting. But it's not. It's so fun. I'm like the weirdest geek in the world that thinks that strategic planning is fun because it shows where we're going in the future and what our ultimate goal is, like what we're striving to get to. So that's pretty cool. Who here in the audience has more than 2 kids? Has at least 2 kids? 2 kids? Okay, some of you are overachievers. I see that. Yeah, me too. I have 4. Okay, that's a lot. That's a lot. You got a lot of kids. You went 6? Anybody have more than 6? I feel like I should give you a door prize. How many, ma'am? Oh, absolutely, we're counting them.
How many do you have?
8 kids. Wow, okay. So you wonder where I'm going with this, probably. But if you have, what's that? 2 at a time. He beat you. He had 3. Although I'm pretty sure he didn't carry them. Although maybe today he could carry them. I'm not sure. Like technology is getting better, from I understand. Yeah. Yep. Awesome. Yep. Okay. Yeah. Awesome. So I bring that up, and I want to know, for those of you who have multiple kids, how many of them are just like each other? They're like the same. Like they're like you're raising the same kid 2 or 3 times. Yeah. When they were young. Not now. Yeah, never the same. I have 4, and each one of them are so different from each other. I think my first one and the 4th one are the most alike, but they're still very, very different. So I think about when my kids got to like their freshman year in high school, and we're looking at like what realistically are they going to do in life? Like where are they going? And one of them says, I'm going to do research, I'm going to go be a PhD, and that's totally her goal. It's what she wants to do. And I had another one that said, hey, I want to fly planes. 2 different career paths. And I had another one that really likes to work with mechanical stuff, wants to build stuff. So as we approached high school, knowing that that's our end goal, where we're going with each one of them, do you think we approached high school and what classes they took differently because of that? Absolutely. So the girl, my daughter, who wants to do research, she's all about academia, she took all the classes that were to get her in a place to go to college to do that. My son, who wants to fly planes, doesn't really care about English a whole lot, took the very bare bones English classes, but took other things that were of interest to him that would help him, right? So the vision for all those kids were different, and how we approached that was different based on where we were going with them, right? So one of the things that we did as we did strategic planning is we looked at what is our vision, like where are we going? So instead of just taking steps to go somewhere random where we may meander this way or this way or this way to get to where we're going, we actually sat down and we thought about where in a perfect world, if the sun was out, it was 77 degrees, and the birds were singing, and everything was perfect in the world, where would we like to be? Okay, we realize we don't live in that world, but if we're thinking forward like that, this is where we want to be. That's what we did for the COPS organization. And we divided the COPS organization into different categories. So we talked to our mission and what we wanted to be, and we talked about different categories. So one of the categories we talked about training, which is one of our divisions in our COPS office. And we said, pie in the sky, 10 years from now, what would we like our training division to be? So we would like to see that we are the national expert in line of duty death education. Okay, that would be great. We had a full service training department that could provide training to anybody that requested it. And I know we had some requests since we've been here to come to your area and to teach. We would like that. We would like people to be seeking us out, right? That would be awesome. We'd also like to have a substantial portfolio of training that people could just access, could check out from us, those sort of things. So that's in our mind where we want to be. That's pie in the sky, everything's going well. So what we did for all of our strategic planning is we looked 10 years out and said pie in the sky. So some of these things we put in there as we go through like chapters and we talk about development and all those things, it may seem like these are really lofty goals, places to go. But if you don't know where you're going, you don't know how to break up the little steps to get there, right? So we thought 10 years out, and then we came up with 3 years worth of goals or steps that we could take that would take us towards that direction. So are we going towards professional academia, or are we going towards flying a plane? So we decided where we're going. Now we're figuring out the steps on how to get there. Make sense? Yeah, so that's what we did. So we don't have a 10-year plan. We have a 3-year plan, but we know where we'd like to be in 10 years.
Right.
So when it comes to trainings, we have, these are all in your presentation. You should all have these here. And so we are not going to read to you every word on these screens.
Right.
Yeah. What's that? Is it not in yours?
Yeah, it is.
If it is not, would you get with Stephanie so she will make sure you get a copy of
Oh,
it?
you don't have it?
A couple of these books up front, I don't know if Steph's seen here, we're missing a couple of the presentations, so we'll make sure that you get it. So you will leave with it.
Yeah.
If you don't have it, let us know. But what we're going to do is we're going to go through and kind of talk about the things we think you might be interested in. We'll hopefully get some feedback from you. I think Kim's still willing to run. Connie, you still willing to run if we need to. But basically, well, the first thing we want to talk about in training is something we're very excited about. This is very current. Our board just talked about this yesterday. No, that's not yesterday, Thursday, at our meeting.
Yep.
And we presented a proposal because in the strategic plan, we talked about the issue of, well, some of the feedback that we were getting is that some of our survivors don't want to go to hands-on programs. They're worried about going to Potosi, Missouri, or Wisconsin, or wherever we host it, and basically shutting off their life for that period of time. It's a big risk. They may have to share a room with somebody, and some survivors feel like that's really intimidating to do that, and so they don't go initially. Usually when somebody gets there, they totally understand why they're there, and they get it, and they never have that issue again. But that first year, it's hard to get folks to go. So we thought of what are some other things we could do to reach those survivors. We also looked at the fact that our survivors tell us that at siblings retreat, our siblings all get to see each other and they get to know each other. Or at parents, same thing. Or at spouses, same thing. But there's very few opportunities through COPS, and this is one of them actually, where our survivors will come together and the siblings and the spouses and the adult children and the extended family and I probably miss a bunch of them. Fiancés, everybody can come together in one place and can learn and interact and be social with each other. So that's something that they requested because really here and National Police Week are really the only 2 programs that we offer that allow that to happen, other than law enforcement trainings. So we're trying to accomplish some of those requests that we got from survivors. So the thought came of why don't we create a national conference for survivors that kind of mirrors and uses what we've learned from doing the National Conference for Law Enforcement, where we set up a conference that will be, potentially can move from city to city. And we offer sessions at that conference set up much traditionally like a conference would, where you can come and you can pick which track you want to go to, which class you want to go to, sessions tailored specifically for survivors on topics of wellness or grief, or we even have sessions where you can come together with your survivor category. And then we also add a social element in there. We have a social event in the evening. We allow opportunities for networking. And we hold a conference where you actually stay at a hotel, check into your room, have control of your own. You can have a TV if you want one. You can have a cell phone if you want one. Some of those things that we hear, maybe it's a downside of our hands-on programs. But at this place, you have a little bit more control, a little bit more normal to your life. So this would not replace a hands-on program. In fact, we would still 100% encourage folks to go because that is such a unique opportunity that really works. So we don't want to break what's working, right? We don't want it to go away. But just give another opportunity for survivors to interact. And I'm going to open that up to a runner. Any comments, feedback? Our board has, by the way, given us permission to go forward and submit a proposal with a budget to them. They love the idea and asked us to go and flesh this out some more. So we'd like a little bit of feedback from you all on this. Any thoughts?
Anybody? Here we go.
I think it's a great idea.
She said it was great.
Let's hear that via loudspeaker.
I think it's a great idea, especially the part where they can bring siblings or spouses, because as everybody knows that's ever been to any of the retreats, those are limited.
Right.
Like being an adult child survivor, you know, of course I love it because once I got there, I met a lot of people like Lorraine, crazy Lorraine.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Lorraine, I didn't call you crazy, just so you know,
Yeah.
if you're listening.
she's not listening.
I
but
know, I
call
would
her
call her crazy.
That's one of the nicer things I call her. But no, you meet a lot of people that you will be friends forever, but this also gives you an opportunity to have your own space if you feel you need it.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people,
Agreed.
especially the newer survivors, might feel that.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. Any other comments, feedback? They can be, we can take conflict too. So if you have something you disagree with or something, we absolutely want to hear that too as well. Board wants to hear what y'all think.
That I think the conference would give people a chance to go at their own pace, you know, to heal at their own pace, that I'll go to this class or this class and not feel like they have to go to everything. So I would want them to go to everything, but maybe they can't go to everything, and it gives them a chance to do that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Matt.
Where do we sign up for the committee to make this happen?
Awesome.
Noted. 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 We have something online?
We do. So Debbie Swafford asked what the cost would look like.
We don't know yet.
Would National be paying for this or the chapters? And just noted that some struggle with Police Week and hands-on finances.
Absolutely.
As is.
So this is something that we would be doing in addition to what we're already offering. So hands-on programs would continue to be exactly the same. National Police Week, exactly the same. In this particular one, at least initially starting off, our thoughts is that the survivor would be responsible for their own lodging, and then a small stipend to attend the conference to help cover some of the cost of meals. That piece of it is just being worked out. This is not something we're trying to do to put an additional burden on chapters. 100% not. We're just trying to offer different choices that people have. Perhaps you can't afford to go to this, you can go to the hands-on program, that kind of thing. But we're just trying to offer different choices. We're really trying to reach some of the audience that we're not reaching currently.
Yeah, and another
Thank you,
thing
Debbie, that's a great question.
Yeah, and outside of that, a lot of positive feedback on they would love that.
Awesome.
So I was just going to add to that, Diane, that it will move around the country as well. So if you can't go this year because it's in California and you live in New York, then, you know, it might be that way the following year. We might be able to move it in that direction. So it is going to move, which will help also.
I was trying to see who had the mic over here.
Okay, so along with what you just said about like the conferences in California, you might be in New York and such and such. Would that, if it was in California, would you want to primarily focus on that region, to focus on them as a priority first, and then if anyone outside of California or whatever would want to go, or is this like full on just national, like?
Full-on national. Anybody could come that's a survivor in our database that wants to come. And we would set it up like a conference. Like we would have vendors and exhibitors there as well for an opportunity to interact there. Not necessarily law enforcement vendors, but maybe something that maybe there'd be some wellness vendors that might be there. Or I'm thinking at our law enforcement conference, we had like nothing but bunk cakes or whatever that place was that came and sold bunk cakes. It was awesome. Like it was great to have them there. We took bunk cakes home because of that. So yes, I'm gonna go to Dana and then over to Cindy.
What I liked about this idea is that you had so many choices, and there are so many opportunities to go to sessions, and you get more of them. I know when I finally convince a family at National Police to look at their book and go to sessions, then they're like, well, I want to go to this one, and this one, and so now they're looking for an opportunity. This gives everybody that opportunity to come and have several sessions. And you can then also maybe take a session that has to do with something to help your chapter without giving up a session that is there for you. So I really like the fact that this is a bigger conference, that we have a lot more control over our own destiny in it.
Thank you, Dana. I'm going to go to Cindy.
Because some of us still have to work, would we be looking at weekends so we're not taking off from our jobs?
So those are just like specific details that we're not really all locked down in yet. We literally just proposed like the general like makeup of what it would look like to the board. And then from there, we'll take it back and we'll look at logistics. One of the things we talked about is maybe adding it before or after the National Law Enforcement Wellness Conference, like have the first 2 or 3 days that one, and then the other days the Survivor Conference. But that's kind of all still a little bit up in the air, and we will obviously have some more details coming out after we get to the next approval process through the board. This step is for the feedback. Thank you for that. That's a good point. Debbie?
I like the idea because the survivor-specific ones, you might leave a parent at home or something. So parents can come with their kids. So you've got a family with the mixed survivors that are going to meet other families like that.
Awesome. That's a great point. That's awesome. All right. I'm going to do one more of this, and we're going to keep this moving because we got a lot of slides to go through. Yeah. A lot of exciting things.
We've talked to a few people this week who are teachers, so maybe if it could be held in July or August when all the kids are out of school from all regions, and then it would allow more people to attend that can't do Police Week and TLEs and things like that.
Awesome. That's good feedback. We'll take that feedback. One of the things that we're going to have to navigate is when in the COPS calendar we can fit that. And, we may, depending on where our obligations are right now, we may be able to do that, we may not, but that's definitely something that we'll take under consideration. So that's really good feedback. Thank you. All right. The only other one on here I want to talk about all of them, to be honest with you. I wanted to stand up here and talk about everything, exciting things we're going to do. But one of the things the board is working on currently is developing a formal onboarding and offboarding training for our national board. And then we want to come up with something that we can provide to you to help you on that process of bringing on new board members and the process of having board members leave your board and what that looks like. Sometimes, as we've heard, that transition can be really, really bumpy. And we'd like to help in that process so it's less bumpy. So that's one of the projects that we're also working on. And I'm going to move that one forward to chapters, and Ms. Cheryl's going to talk about where we're going.
Okay, how exciting, right? So it's our vision to have all chapters. We will be able to provide, goodness, I can't even talk, consistent and uniform services because they are sized right. So we want to try to unify that and have all of our chapters relatively the same in size. Some of them have 10 or 15 people, as we discussed earlier, on their board, and some only have like 5. So we want to, try to uniform those so that they're similar, and what they are doing is similar also. So moving on to that, I want to talk about the goals. You have the little push button. So one of the important things that I thought we needed to talk about was the job-specific in-person and or virtual on-demand potential topics. So this to me is vital for a chapter. We need to all be uniform in the way we handle these things. We can't, it's really hard because one chapter might not do anything. They might not even go out and meet their new survivors right away, or they may not take a packet, or they may not, understand the agency, how the agency feels, what the agency is going to provide, what they're going to do, what they're going to help with, all of that. So because everybody is different, and we all are across the United States, and we all have different chapters, and everybody runs it differently, we are trying to at least uniform some things, right? So we're looking at the line of duty response, hospital care visits, which everybody has a different view on that, we know that. Crisis communication, how to respond to requests outside the COPS mission, like if it's a suicide, injured officers, peer support, that kind of thing, and PSOB benefits, and benefits potentially available. And we know now that we have a benefit specialist, and she's going to help us through all that process, right? But we need to uniform those things throughout the country. And Diane just mentioned the onboarding checklist for new and returning board members. So we want to do that within each chapter as well. Okay? So the ones I wanted to mention here specifically is the formal succession planning program for chapters, develop a program to provide aftercare debriefings for chapter board members who have reported to line of duty deaths. We have already started that. And I think some of y'all may have attended it after National Police Week or after a line of duty death, something like that. You know how down you kind of feel after that. And so I would say that that is what that's about. We want to reach out to everybody and let them, and it's by Zoom is what we did, right? We
For
did it
the,
all by Zoom.
debriefings?
Yeah. So, and we've already started those. So I don't know if y'all have, sorry, y'all is a word too, by the way. But
It is.
See, I got support over here. I don't know if y'all, participated in that or not, but they did offer it, and I thought that was great because we all work, right? We're all there at National Police Week, and we're doing stuff all week with our survivors and stuff, and that's a difficult thing to do. So at the end of that week, it's kind of nice to debrief and kind of talk about our feelings, our emotions, that kind of stuff as well. But as talk about what we've missed out on. But I wasn't going to go into a lot of this. You do have those pages in your book. Diane, is there anything I need to hit on that I didn't on that?
No, the only other thing I wanted to add on here as you go through, you'll see that there's several different programs and projects that we listed out, that those are the ones that we're, as a staff, fleshing out. Some of those are 3-year goals. Ideally, we would hit 100% in 3 years. That's not reality, probably, especially after the 2 years that we just had.
Right.
But this is the general direction we're going. So if we get to a point we have to push it a year, we'll push it a year.
Yeah.
It just kind of helps us know which direction
We're not
we'd
going
like
to drop
go.
it, but we are
Yeah.
going to try to work on it and get our, work through these things.
Yeah.
So,
Sorry, one of the thing I want to talk about is quickly on the right size chapter too, is
Yes.
please don't take from this that we're wanting to redraw chapter
No, no,
lines
no.
and all that, because that's
No.
not what we're really talking about.
No.
We're talking about those chapters that are struggling because they can't get enough people on the board. They
Right.
can't get enough volunteers. Does it still make sense to keep that chapter like that, or does it make sense to add it to a neighboring chapter and do regions or trustees? We're going to look at
Right.
how many survivors realistically live in that region. So if you live in a chapter region that only maybe has 100 survivors and you're struggling to get somebody on the board, well, that makes a whole lot of sense because there's not a lot to draw from. So we've never really used data to look at how many survivors do we have in each chapter, and does it make sense? Like, are we setting up our chapters to succeed, or are you literally trying to pull people when you don't have anybody to pull? So
Right.
we just need to look at that and see if we're doing it right, or if we need to re-look at how we're doing some of those.
right, good.
Please
Thank
don't
you.
leave thinking we're changing your chapter.
Yeah,
That's
no,
not where we're
no,
going
we're not
with
doing
this.
that, no.
Yeah. I changed it for you.
Okay, so the one I want to talk about here is the emerging leader position. I wanted to bring that up because, we're all getting older. And so all of us are. I am older. And so anyway, as we're thinking about that, though, we do want someone to come on and be an emerging leader. We want to have someone that can assist with bringing on new people. And that's kind of the best way to do it, honestly, is to have an emerging leader position and let them, take part in, Kim, take part in helping bring new people, younger people. We want to get younger people involved, but there's not an age limit on this position. But we are talking about, how we're going to involve more people. So I know, Diane, you can probably talk about that better than I can, but.
Lynn leads our succession planning committee. So
Yeah, let's let her talk
about this.
There's always work to be done, so I appreciate all the input. But I did want to just acknowledge that I think even this weekend, we've got a couple adult children that are here. And so your point about there is not really an age minimum or max either. We're just recognizing the fact that because being a volunteer means often having no job, as we've learned, or for those of you who still work, it is harder to be able to volunteer. And so we're trying to recognize that we know people that do want to step up and provide more leadership, but we need to find how to meet you halfway. If you're working and you've got a lot of demands because maybe you have young kids, whatever. But I did want to make a point to acknowledge that I know there are some young adult or adult children even here that are already doing things with their chapter. I know I met from Florida. I'm drawing a blank. Yes.
Yeah.
So, it's exciting for us to see as kids go through our program, through Kids Camp, through Outward Bound, through young adult and now adult children, they do want to do more and they want to become more involved in their chapters and how we can make that happen. And maybe it starts when they're 19 by taking a leadership class. Maybe it doesn't start until they're 35, but at least they've been exposed and given the opportunity to have some leadership training. So that's really what this is specific to. I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you so much.
It does. And just to know the status of this, there's a proposal with some details about what this would look like.
Yeah.
That is, it's been presented, the Succession Planning Committee has it now from the board, so they'll be fleshing it out into bullet points that you can actually see, okay, this is what they're talking about, this is what it might work with or not. So we'll be bringing that back to you, but it's something we're really excited about.
Yes. Dana, did you have something?
Oh,
No? Oh, over here.
Going to say that when we're talking about young adults, that we also have young siblings, we have young
Absolutely.
grandchildren, we have young, cousins and spouses and things like that. We want to make sure that
Acknowledge
is
them.
something we keep in the back of our minds, that we have a lot of young people that are not just us adult children.
Right.
So.
yeah, absolutely. We have one question from the online folks.
Yeah, not a question, but Kim Wigan wanted to just comment. She said, we put a 16-year-old on the board with her mom's permission to help with the talking with younger kids. And so far, after a year, she's been very successful. And kids will open up to her a lot. And she has a non-voting position, exactly what
Yeah.
we're talking
Yeah.
about.
Absolutely. That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's one of the
That's
things I brought up when
Pennsylvania.
we were discussing it was that they can help with that mentorship as well. But of course, emerging leader is different than mentorship, but the mentorship has to be a part of it, right? Because those younger kids, we have those young kids that are new to the organization and have nobody to share with or nobody to talk with, and they really want to talk to somebody close to their age, so that is so helpful.
Awesome. I'm going to keep us moving.
Okay.
Thanks for all the great comments. Do you want to touch on one of these?
Yeah, I like that coincide election
Yeah,
thing.
let's do that. Let's talk about that.
Have y'all noticed that in here? So it has been really talked about a lot, moving the elections, the chapter elections to coincide with the national elections. It's going to be different. It won't be exactly what you're probably thinking right now, that both of them are happening exactly at the same time. That's probably not what's going to happen, but we are still working on that. But that to me is a big thing. I would like to take a kind of just a little pool in here to see.
You want to tell them what the issue is with the timing of the chapter location?
Yeah, so you all probably know this. You take your office April 1st, right? We have votings in March. And what are you busy working on in March? Huh. So how do you feel about the time that you have to spend working on Police Week, and then along comes the election process, and now we've got to try to work on that as well, and have our elections. And
End
do
of
your
the year.
reports. Yeah, good point.
It's crazy
Yeah.
timing.
So-
That's the kind of feedback we've been
Yeah,
getting, is that it's
exactly.
really challenging to take office and then turn around and go to Police Week we have board members that work with families up until that point.
Yep.
Maybe there's new board members and there's a family that has to go to Police Week and manage that transition. That's some feedback.
Yep.
So we're looking at how best to deal with that. Totally not try to take.
I mean, do y'all have a feeling on that? If I took a poll right now, would you all be like that idea, or would you not like that idea, or love? Move it. Move it.
Move it. Go ahead, Dave.
As a treasurer, is that also considering moving the fiscal year?
So our fiscal year, no, it's not. So that's the con. I'm so glad you brought it up. That's the con in it,
Yeah.
is that the fiscal year ends March 31st, and so the treasurer books change at the same time as the fiscal year. So that would be one of the cons, is that we would have a whole first quarter with one treasurer, and then a quarter into the new fiscal year is when we would switch, which is July.
Yeah.
So that is the con to it, and so the role of the board right now is to make a decision whether that con outweighs the changing before Police Week. So very good point. It's not ideal. Yeah. I guess Kim. Let's do Kim first.
My question is, that's going to affect the chapter leadership training. And I don't know if that's been thought about, but if you do the elections
about it.
today or at the same time, then I wouldn't be here.
Yeah, so that absolutely, did you want to talk about the?
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, that is something that has also been talked about there. There's another piece of it that's a little bit messy. Right now, the elections for the national board is in July at this meeting specific date. Chapters, if we said it sometime during the month of July, around that time that you would do elections after Police Week, you would have to, ahead of time, determine who's coming to board chapter training. Many times, elections for chapters are not contested, so you kind of know who it's going to be, so you could potentially send someone to chapter training already knowing that. You also don't have to be a board member to attend this training, so you could send a potential future leader that may or may not get elected to the training as well. But it is something definitely that's been talked about a lot, so that's a very good point. And there's the challenge, and it's why it has to get fleshed out a little more.
Yeah.
But that was the
Go ahead.
thought of the committee.
My comment is just going back on his about the treasurer position. Is there any way that you could make some kind of accommodation to have like maybe an overlap where you have the two treasurers so that way it's an easier transition and you're not having one end here and the other one start, and maybe have the two overlap in that position?
I'm sure that there's some thoughts to that. I'm going to acknowledge your idea that possibly I would have to ask our financial folks about that though, because in our bylaws it says a treasurer and stuff, so there's some complications to that. But I think definitely a mentoring period doesn't hurt at a minimum.
Yeah.
I was going to have the similar comment, because that would also give the old treasurer and the new treasurer time to overlap. So there would be a really good passing of the books. The old treasurer would be working on the audit, and so they would be able to explain it, and the new treasurer would be like shadowing them. So I think it would be a good training opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
And potentially, like our governance committee and our board is working on this, so potentially a hybrid of this could happen as well. It's just, this is the plan, is to try to figure out how to do this so we can meet the complaints that we're hearing from the chapter that March is bad. Like March is a bad time to do it. What's the best solution going forward? And the thought process is doing it around this month would be a good time, but the
So maybe
specific
even-
details still have to be fleshed out a little bit. Yeah, there's
I mean,
details
it's
to be
clearly
fleshed
in the
out.
works, right? So we're still working on it.
Yeah, none of these are final decisions. This is the plan. So for everything in the plan, we take it, we flesh it out, we come up with a proposal, we take it back to the board, and then they ultimately vote. This one directly affects the chapters, so any change that we make that directly affects the chapters goes out to formally goes out to the chapters for comment as well.
Yeah.
So we are introducing the idea of this right now to you, and we want to get your feedback on that, and that's going to help shape the process. But you will get a lot of opportunities to comment on this going forward too, before it ever goes into place.
Yeah.
Fair? Is there more?
I just had a comment that somebody made to me the other night that, well, this would be a horrible time of year for us, for our particular chapter. And that actually happens in March, too. You have people up in Michigan can't get there because they have 4 feet of snow. You have, if you do it in July, then, we have chapters that are working on kids' camp, things like that. So it's almost impossible. But if there's a possibility, and this had been mentioned earlier when we talked about, you could hold your election in June or July, give a time frame, hold in June or July, whatever works best for your chapter, and have it start August 1st, which I know is the first month into the second quarter. But that quarter of the year is much less busy than the first quarter, when you're trying to do last year's end of year reports and audit review or financial review. So I like where you have both treasurers working on that as a training. I love that idea.
I like that.
Yeah. I do too, although that quarter is on the July 1st, not August, but that's okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Gotcha. We're going to probably keep moving from
Yes.
this, but did you want more votes from, or did you want to do an extra thing?
I think we're good, but expect to see stuff in your email box.
Thank you for all the comments.
Soon. I only did want to mention, though, that off the regional trainings that we're thinking about having, offer regional trainings for all chapter boards directly following elections. And that kind of helps, too, with y'all in the moving forward with your new board. And that way, if it's regionally done, we're talking about having your region trustee, and you come together on a regional basis, and we all do training that way after board so that everybody knows. And like I said, we want to all be on the same page as to how we do things and how we respond and that kind of stuff. So that's all.
Infrastructure, this one is mine. This is one we are always looking at, is making sure that we have adequate space in order to house our staff and our needs. And so that's just a constant one we put on there. The only area right now that we're experiencing, well, I mean, we've filled up most of our offices. We have, I think, 1 or 2 spare offices, but we have had some employees go work remote too, so that's alleviated a little bit.
Yep.
The only space we're really feeling a pinch right now is in our warehouse space for our merchandise. I don't know if you all have noticed how much the merchandise stuff has grown. And when she said that merchandise was being stored on her desk, she's really kind of not kidding that we're doing that a little bit. So that's really the only space right now we're worried about figuring physical space for things is that. So we'll be looking at that as we go through the next 3 years. For communications, we want to be known as the national expert on responding to line of duty death by law enforcement, by stakeholders, and the outside community, and the national media. Okay, that's the big where we would like to be. We won't lose a single survivor because they don't know about us. That's the goal. That's where we want to be. Some steps towards that would be utilizing national partnerships to connect cops to our chapters. Some of the things that we're doing, you saw yesterday morning when I talked about all those initials conferences that we go to for all the organizations. We do that for a purpose. We build relationships with each one of those. I'd like to see us leverage those relationships we have on a national level to help you all on a chapter level. So the national FOP relationship we have, if we could have, the Pat Yost and the national board of the FOP selling us to the chapter or to their chapters of the FOP and can get you invitations to their conferences in the States, if we can use that relationship to have that happen, perhaps give them a value. Say we can come and teach an hour-long training at your conference, and then we invite the chapter to come with us, building that connection. That's kind of where we're seeing of trying to leverage those national partnerships to help you all on the local level. Yes, question. Here comes Kim. Run, Kim, run. No, I'm just kidding. I just want to see her run.
After your talk yesterday, when you showed the whole list of all the alphabetical groups you actually go to and you set up a booth, you mentioned that you might, if you're in our area, you would get a hold of us maybe. Would you consider inviting one of the chapter members to work your booth with you at these events so we could be there to answer questions about the area or our own chapter, our own experiences?
So there's some of them we could do that, some of them we can't. Some of them we're very limited on how many people we could bring, especially now after COVID. Matter of fact, we have one we're going to. We can literally only bring 2 people too. It's a good idea. The only thing about it would be great to have you there working it, but the people that are attending those conferences are from all over the country. So really the focus at those national conferences is not generally on where the conference is at. So like we're going to Cleveland, but the FBINA, they're not going to be. The people that are attending there are not going to be like just Cleveland, Ohio, or Ohio area. They're people from California and Florida. So if we focus our booth on just that area, we'll be missing the boat with those folks on the outside. But what I do like to do there is that's a great time for national and chapters to connect like we're there. So we should be doing a better job at connecting. So I already, like the folks, where's Phoenix? There we go. Phoenix has already invited us to go to dinner while we're there and see if we can't have some networking time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great time for that, actually.
Oops, was I supposed to do something on the other one? Did I just skip it? Nope, I just did it. Development, our goal is that our revenues always exceeds our expenses, and that we can do whatever we want because we have enough money. I mean, really, that's what it boils down to, is that we can, anything that you guys can throw at us strategy-wise, that we have enough money to cover it. That's the big pie in the sky. If necessary, we could operate independent of our BJA grant. Right now, it looks like we just did the audit. They said 27 months, 29 months. I think 29 months. If we took in no more money at all, the grant went away, we didn't fundraise for $1, we could operate COPS for 29 months, which is pretty good because we're not stopping bringing in money and all those things. But that's where we're at now. But ideally, I'd like to see that even go up more. So if we don't get a grant for a grant cycle, that's 1/3 of our funding that goes away. So we want to be able to feel comfortable if that were to happen, which I hope it never will. So we're going to be working on developing a formal planned giving strategy. We really don't have this. Like we do have states that will identify COPS as the charity of their choice of when someone dies. But we don't really have a formal strategy to approach that. So we're going to be working on that. And we have presented a report to the National Board, and we are going to be focusing our COPS walks on the Harpers Ferry in the Southwest. We are not going to be doing the Midwest COPS walk going forward. We haven't done it the last couple of years. It never really took off in our numbers to make that make sense for our staff, but we're going to be focusing our efforts on the 2 COPS walks instead of the 3. And programs, is that you, ma'am?
Oh, is
Or
that me? No, I'm
Me,
survivors.
okay.
Yep, that's you again.
Basically, programs is we're going to meet survivors where they are. That's why we're talking about doing a conference. We're going to try to meet those survivors that hesitate to get involved. We want to figure out what they would get involved with and meet them there, if that makes sense. We want to make sure we're funneling people into the programs that they need, and when they get there, they're going to get the experience that they needed when they get there. Okay, that's the goal. We also want those survivors that once they get engaged, they also get like the full circle, do what you're doing right now, get involved in their chapters, and then give back to new survivors. We are doing a lot of studies right now. We're going to be seeing a lot of surveys. We've already started sending surveys out about hands-on programs. We sent some out a few months ago to see if we're still meeting the needs with our current hands-on programs. And we're basically trying to use the data to help drive our decisions on where we make programs. We're also talking about, besides the national conference, perhaps some other social event that would be purely not have programming, but just another place for survivors to come together and network that could be hosted by National COPS as a possibility. That one's probably 2 to 3 years out before we were to be realistic.
Ways down the road.
Yeah. Survivor support, ma'am.
That is me. So COPS is available to provide peer support for any member 24/7. We are typically, but we don't have a special line to do that. You know that you can reach your NCL or whoever you need at the national office. Actually, you would go through your regional trustee first in your area, and then if they can't answer your question, they can find out what you need to do to go further. That's how we handle it today. We're not sure how this is going to work out, so we're still working on that, so I'm not going to go into that too much. COPS, we want to make sure that COPS is an expert in all survivor benefits and advocates on behalf of survivors. Law enforcement has a single point of contact for LE to use immediately after a line of duty death to connect to their chapter and to National COPS. So we've already, we talked about this a little bit ago. We have Alyssa, who is the benefit specialist now. So if you have questions about benefits and stuff like that, then that is your person, that's your go-to. And she's already established in that position. You know, she's learning every day too, as we all are, right? We can be a specialist today. You heard Hope Yankee say yesterday that you know, it changes. It's forever changing. And so therefore, you could know it today and tomorrow it changes. So it just is on our government as to how that changes and when it changes and stuff like that. So, but Alyssa is your person.
Yes. I see a comment, but Debbie's got her hand up.
Okay.
Have you or would you consider survivors that have to go through clemency hearings? There are 2 of us back here that just had to go through that, 1 positive, 1 negative. So to have support on that would be very beneficial.
That's a wonderful idea.
It is.
Would you write that on your evaluation at the end of this so we can capture that? So
Yeah.
it doesn't come in one place and out the other place of my head?
Yeah.
But if you would write that on your thing, I think that's definitely something that we could talk about offering as one of the program's pieces, the conference such as that.
It's a great comment.
Great comment. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's it. I wasn't going to go into, do I need to? Study on survivor retention, including National Police Week through hands-on programs. Look for gaps and identify weaknesses. We do want to do that. We are trying to work on that. Because we lose people, right? In between, after National Police Week, a lot of our people go home from that and don't touch base again. We don't touch base with them. They don't touch base with us. They're lost. So, and they don't go to their hands-on programs because maybe they don't know about them. I mean, that's what we are there to do. We are there to help them understand what the hands-on programs are all about and to go to those for their survivorship. And so we don't want them getting lost between National Police Week and their hands-on program. So somehow we have to captivate all of that. And we're looking into that and how we can do that. We're looking for ideas. So if y'all have ideas with regards to that, it would be very helpful for us.
So I think the first thing that we're talking about there is we just need to get the data. Like, we don't really know. Like, we all anecdotally say we think we know why people don't go to hands-on programs, but we never really ask, like, why didn't you go to your hands-on program? What could we do to bridge that gap kind of thing? We need to actually pull together some data so we can make some decisions based on this is what we know, not that this is what we think we know. And we make a lot of decisions on what we think we know sometimes rather than having the data behind that. So this is directing the staff to do a kind of a deeper dive into the data. What does it show us? Like, why, if we have, 100 new survivors that are coming to hands-on programs, but we know we added, 2,000 survivors, why did those 1,900 not come? And we don't really know the answer to that right now. So we need to figure that out before we can tackle what we do to fix it.
Right.
Right? So that's, I think, what we're looking at there.
Connie?
Yes.
It's for me. One of the things that I found on the chapter level is the database. People move continually. It's like they change jobs, they move. And so perhaps if we could rely on our chapters to, I know you got a lot to do, but keep up a little bit better, and national keep up a little bit better on the database, because that's a huge, they're not getting the information a lot of times because we're sending it.
That's a really good point. And like, we're only as good as the information that we have.
Right.
So what we do, just on it, so you know what we do on the national level, is when we send out the Hope magazine or we send out a publication and we pay the extra piece that sends back to us if it doesn't get delivered. And so we will take that person's address out of, we'll put it we put it to sleep, basically, saying that that's no longer their address, but we don't necessarily know what their new address is. And so those things come back to us. I think it would be really helpful. They come back in stacks. Like, so then it takes somebody at the front desk goes in and does that manual enter. I think it would be a really helpful piece, and Stephanie's just gonna cringe maybe. But I think one of those things that we need to look at is when we come back and we know we're taking somebody out and they were part of this chapter, doing that next step of reaching out to the chapter saying, we sent something to them and it came back undeliverable. Do you have something new for us? We don't do that very well right now. We do send you lists of who are new survivors in your area, but when we get stuff back saying the address didn't work, we're not so good at telling you all that. Dave? Or, sorry. Well, my gosh, the think tank over here is at work.
I deal with addresses, so in addition to that, if we could get, when you get that information, somehow that's the people that move towards us, if we can have that flagged, hey, these moved, because I'm looking at, oh yeah, this is a 2018 survivor, but that's a new survivor to us, so we may not have reached out to them before.
Yeah.
So so that information can kind of just go, hey, here's a priority or something. I don't know how to flag that in the database or how we can.
Barbie,
get
are
that
you able to
information.
speak to that? Stephanie may not quite be able to speak to that yet about how we sent that out. Thank you. That's great input,
It is
Dave.
great, yeah.
So are you saying somebody moved into your chapter and you were not aware of that? So you get a biweekly report that's sent to you every 2 weeks automatically, and there is a column on there that is, I think, most recently revised. You can sort by that. And if we've recently revised their address, moving them to your area, they'll fall either at the top or the bottom, whichever way you sort it.
That report goes to somebody else, and then it eventually trickles down to me because I deal with the database. So yeah.
If you have signed a confidentiality agreement, the president of the chapter just needs to request to national if they want an additional person to receive that biweekly report. And the only requirement is it has to be justified. There's a reason why they need that information on a routine basis, and there has to be a signed confidentiality statement on file with national.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And we would be happy to walk through anybody if they need help on how to sort something like that. It might not be intuitive to you. Absolutely, call the office. Somebody can teach you how to sort that, so it helps you. How are we doing on time? I just want to be respectful.
About 5 after.
5 after? Okay, let's do 2 more questions. Jamie, you, no, I want to hear from
So
you.
we can,
Talk into the microphone.
so we can sort that list?
You can sort that list.
Oh, yeah.
We would be happy to show you.
I didn't know that we could sort
If you
that
open it in
list.
Excel,
I sort
If you open it in Excel, you can use Excel sorting to sort that by the recent update on that. Barbie can show you. I swear, it's not hard. I can.
It's really not. If I can do it.
I can do it. So it's super easy.
Yeah.
So for 2 years, I've been going, I wish I knew what was, I
Okay,
wish I
so-
knew who was new.
Jamie's going to need some therapy and some peer counseling back here. If somebody can get on that. And one more question.
more of a comment. Where you said getting more people into the hands-on programs, this year at Police Week, as we met new sibling survivors, we were connecting on Facebook and bringing them into the LESS group. Before we left, we already had one new sibling sign up for the hands-on in September. So that was the way that we were connecting with them.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you all for your time and your comments and stuff. We could talk for a really long time about this because as you can tell, I'm super excited.